Today at shopdap.com, we're going to talk about how this S4 almost caught fire. One day at the end of a long day, I went to walk out to my car. I get in the vehicle and I push the start button, and the engine turns over one time, then stops like it has a dead battery. I push it again just to verify I held it all the way down the first time and realize the engine is still turning over, but not over and over like it's cranking, just a single time and then stopping and then turning over again and then stopping. Since it continued, I tried putting the key in the dash, pushing that in to see if that would stop it, and I tried pushing the button a few more times to see if that would stop it. But it was still going. Then Max came out, and as he was going home for the day, found my situation, and since I assumed this was a freak out due to low battery voltage, as he pulled his car forward, it started to smoke. And then it started to smoke some more. And then some more, until we realized that there was something must be done about this situation. So Max sprung into action and he ran inside. But realizing that some of the tools were not in the same place where he was going to go look for them, I then ran inside. At this point, we got the tools out and we disconnected the cable to the starter, which prevented this from continuing, just smoking and smelling. Which brings us to today, with a broken S4. So, I think you may be thinking that the car is heavily modified and this is what caused the problem. And you would be incorrect. This actually reached out to some Audi techs, and few of them have heard of this. It's not common, but it is something that has been seen before and had nothing to do with it being tuned. I suspect this is due to low battery voltage, and had we not been experienced, I think it's possible this car may have been burned all the way to the ground. But luckily it wasn't, or maybe unluckily, I don't know. So this is what the car was doing before. And after the starter got smoked, here's what it does now. When you start a car, the starter spins the flywheel of the vehicle. But it doesn't just spin, it has a solenoid that engages it and pushes the pin out to engage the flywheel. What you're hearing in that second clip is actually the solenoid not engaging, and probably because this starter's completely smoked, and that's why you just hear it freewheeling instead of actually engaging as you would need a starter to do to start your car. So this is the starter freewheeling completely inside, and we either have an issue with our starter or the cable to the starter. One or both of them are fried, so we're gonna have to test that when we actually do our install and remove the starter from the vehicle. So what we're going to do is remove a starter, we're going to inspect it, and then we're going to check the resistance from the starter cable that runs from the starter up to that battery block in that cowl to verify the resistance is not too high on that cable and it's not torched due to the excessive heat came through it. Now I know replacing a starter and testing the cable sounds easy, but on the 3-liter S4, the starter is conveniently located underneath the engine mount, and conveniently you also have to remove the rear part of the firewall and the catalytic converter to allow you to access that starter conveniently. Also, PS, this is not going to be a DIY because I would not recommend this to be a DIY, but if you want to do it DIY and you're capable of doing a DIY, this will give you enough information that will help you DIY it. Let's go. So the first thing we did was we started by disconnecting the battery, and because this car has been sitting for a little bit of a while, so we had a flat tire, I have the battery on a charger and it is disconnected because we need to make sure it's not powering the starter, because when we touch it, we could get electrocuted and stuff. So we did that. And now we're gonna lift it up and show you what we need to do, all the fun, to take the starter out. This is not gonna be a DIY, but you are gonna see everything it takes to do this wonderful, wonderful job. The starter, if you take a look, is located right up there in this vicinity. So we got to get all this stuff out of the way. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to accomplish here, but that's where we're headed. So according to the manual on this, we need to take out this cowl piece to remove this to access the stuff in the back. We're going to take out the downpipe and then the catalytic converter and then the engine mount to get access to the starter. So if you're not prepared for that type of work, you should not consider to do this at home. Even though this is not a DIY, we will show you. You'll be riding with us. Okay, so now we're about to pull these coolant hoses off. I have a modified version of a coolant bottle in the cowl there. That is because we need to catch that coolant, and otherwise you're gonna drain all kinds of coolant inside this cowl, and it's gonna be a cowl river. I'm gonna attempt to not make a mess once I do remove it. Oh, come on. I missed most of it. I got some of it. I certainly missed quite a bit. Here's what we caught. If you don't do this, that'll be in your cowl. And then eventually probably drip all over the floor when it runs through the drains. These are never fun because these quick connects are never quick.
It's a quick connect, bro. It's supposed to be quick.
It's super quick. They're only quick connecting, not removing, not disconnecting. That's why they call them quick connects. They should call them difficult disconnects.
A few inches later.
That doesn't help us. I'm just going one at a time here, okay? Let's struggle one at a time. Now, they will make you frustrated, that's for sure. They will do that. Quick connects. Quickly connecting. 1 minute into the video. We're in for a rough ride. I can't say this with confidence, but this might be the hardest part of this install. It's possible. You have to like wiggle it, but the problem is because this is plastic, it flexes. So while you're wiggling, you need to pull, and that will usually get it off. But the problem is when you're doing it on plastic, it doesn't work great. Quick connects are going to be quickly disconnected by the other side of the hose. I'm going to disconnect the other side of the hose.
And just pull it through the hole?
And yeah, I'm going to pull the whole thing through the hole. Quick connects. Quickly makes you disconnect it somewhere else. Charles said, I've made a mess. Hold on, let me put my thumb in that hole. Okay, so right now, I have the non-quick connect end of that side off. And I'm gonna take the non-quick connect end of this side off. And if you hear, there's coolant draining all over the floor currently. And we're out. I'm gonna plug this hole. I'm gonna plug that hole so we stop this draining from coolant everywhere. The floor in this case is not lava, but it is gonna be slippery as
for the rest of this DIY.
You're gonna watch me slip and slide all over the place. So if you take a look back here, this is where we can see the catalytic converters right here on this car. This is one of the processes you need to do to access the cats. You can see here is the passenger side one, and here's the driver side one. Doing this cowl piece gets you access to that stuff, and that's one of the things we need to do to make this happen. I did make a mess. This is the amount of coolant that we lost. I probably would recommend if you were DIYing something like this to just drain your coolant ahead of time. It would probably save you a lot of heartache. I also found out I have cords coming through my tire. We must have an alignment issue of some kind. So that's neat. Ah, yes. Yes.
What are you doing?
I'm having some private time with this engine. I think this is how I'm actually gonna have to get that lower cat bolt off. So I'm just trying to feel for it with the tip of my fingers, just the tip of my fingers for a second, just to see how it feels and to see if I can actually reach them from here. I believe I can.
What is the, whoa, how many extensions are?
Well, this is what I used, okay?
What, we'll put that back together.
This is what I used, okay? Well, these are all wobble extensions, but I didn't use the wobble part of them because that would have gotten real wobbly like this.
Is that uncomfortable?
No, this is actually perfectly comfortable.
Pretty messy down there.
That's our coolant leaf combo over there. That's coolant and leaves mixed together. We're probably gonna have to vacuum it up in a little bit here. This is an engine brace. It is used to brace the engine.
Yeah, but if you hook that up, you're not going to be able to lay on top of the car anymore.
That's true. It will be a challenge. I'm not positive that I'm not going to regret this. 2 of the cat nuts are off. Now I've abandoned the cat removal. I'm going to remove the engine mount because I believe it's going to make it easier for me to get that cat off. And yeah, one of the nuts is extremely difficult to get to. So we're going to get the engine brace hooked up right here on this hook and hold this side of the engine up. We can take the engine mount bracket off then I believe we'll get more clearance, and then we can get everything going. Taking the wheel off, taking the part of the fender liner out to give us access to some stuff that makes it, one, easier for you to see, but also easier for me to access with the engine mount and some of these items with bolts with it. So instead of continuing to screw around, by not getting that done, I'm just gonna take this wheel off and make my life easier.
What?
It appears as though we're a little stuck on. When you have that problem, is you thread a bolt back in and then you do the, like that. Do a little kick like that, a little hook kick. Right now we're looking at the wheel liner out, and we're looking at the side of the engine. This is the brace here, and this bolt I removed, this bolt I removed, this bolt I removed, and the last bolt we need to take out for this engine mount is gonna be right through the middle here. Now, if you take a look down there, you can actually see it. And you can see it's a triple square going right through there. Again, we have our engine braced, so we should be good. And then it should loosen all this stuff up.
Wait a minute, you were trying to take that bolt out without the fender liner out?
No, that one I did not attempt to take out with the fender liner out. It was all these other ones around it. So you see, this one and this one would have been a hell of a lot easier if I had removed this first. They're easily accessible here. I could have just used a gun and just zinged it off, but instead what I did is I didn't take out the fender liner, and then I slowly did it with a ratchet by hand for way too long. Yeah, so lesson learned, right? Lesson learned. Oh God, that's tight. Oh. I hit my arms and my face, and hopefully I broke it loose, because that was painful. Okay, so now we've got a much larger ratchet. Give us a little more leverage here. At that time I did it without even hitting my face. Imagine that. Now I'm gonna have a fat lip. This was an attempt at an extension situation. Didn't really work out how I'd hoped. We're abandoning it. I'm on this nut right now. I don't have a lot of space to work with, and I am really having a tough time here. For most people, I would say this particular bolt would be the end of you working on cars for the rest of your life. This would make you quit working on cars forever and ever. Amen. I can do this blind, or I can use this fancy tool that I have that allows me to see what I'm doing. It's kind of neat. So that those transmission lines on the bottom are our issue. It is a lot like a game of operation. The worst game of operation ever. Because this thing keeps popping back on. We're doing this. Wobbles are better, but in this particular case, my head's gonna wobble off my shoulders if this thing does that again. This is very uncomfortable. So you probably haven't seen too much in our video yet, because it's been mostly just me struggling and with one of the cat bolts. As you can see, I have a bloody arm here from jamming my arm in places where it probably doesn't belong. Our engine mount is about to come out, and at least I'll feel like I've done something. Fun fact, these engine mounts have sensors, so you can get a check engine light if your engine mount goes bad. So, that's a fun fact. Oh yeah, it's as loose as a long neck goose. It's kind of an odd shape to get out of this hole. Kind of the problem. It's like, it's got prongs on every end of it. It's more than multi-pronged, it's just got pieces all over it. If I get it out, I believe in myself actually, when I get it out, you'll see. And then you'll be like, oh wow, I don't know how that's gonna get back in. And I'm gonna be like, you know what, you're right, I don't know how it's gonna get back in there either. I'm probably gonna say that. Engine bracket. One prong here, and then one prong here, and one here, and then this horn that sticks out there, and then these guys there. Oh, and then this heat shield up top. Don't forget about that. That also gets in the way too. So
how did you get?
Very careful. You underestimate my sneakiness. There may be some juice leaking out of our starter. I'm not sure about that. It does look kind of like there's some juice over there. With our starter, the juice was loose. And we're not talking about O.J. Simpson. Hey, Twitter world. I need to do more pulling than I do pushing. Don't you fall on me.
Oh snap.
That just broke loose. Oh yes. Yes. Oh yes. I feel amazing. I'm amazingly tired. So if you want to do calf on S4, good luck. That was my ninja trick. Separate the catalytic converter from the rest. Now we probably can't remove it all the way, would be my guess, but all I really need to do is slide it back. Because it's very late. It's very late into the evening, morning.
This boroscope is putting in some hours.
It's putting in some work. So now you can see it's right there underneath that trans line right there. So do this with this conveniently placed engine brace. This conveniently placed engine brace right here. Look at this. I'm rubbing it. I like it like that. It's a 12 point, what I presume is a 16 and maybe an 18, but so let's do it. I am loosening this, so we're really in the home stretch here.
You have to put that cat back in, which is going to be fun.
Well, maybe they'll just have a leak and just put it in through 2. We'll just put in 2 or 3. That'll be fine. That'll be just fine.
We can weld it.
And just put some JB weld and smush it in between. Nah, I can get it. I believe in myself. We're gonna take the starter out, guys. Hey guys, today we're gonna take a starter out of an S4. Boom! This is one of those things that when you work on cars, you gotta jam your hands in places that just hurt because you don't have any other option. I mostly was able to get my hand through the pain. Now the pain is mostly on my wrist. Oh, there we go. Okay, okay. You think the engineers were laughing? Like, you know what would be hilarious? If the starter ever goes bad, because we buried that right underneath the transmission. No. Here she is. Ta-da! Let's see what it looks like. But this part, I don't think is dirt. That's not dirt, I don't think. That's the juice area that I was talking about. I think that's actually scorched stuff from inside the starter. I have no idea what we're gonna find in here. It does appear, can you smell that?
I don't smell it.
Okay, look inside there.
Looks like I smell it now.
You smell it? You smell it now? Remember when you said it smelled like something was burning? It was the smell of the starter. Here we go. You ready for it?
Just unleashed all the.
I'm gonna unleash the beast right now. Ugh, it really does smell quite bad. Oh, this isn't even. I thought this might be kind of removable, but it's not. This is pieces inside the starter. I assume this is probably insulation and stuff that's completely come apart. Oh, there we go. I do think that all of that stuff came from all of the insulation that was supposed to be on all this stuff. And if you look inside, you can see inside there, all around the edges, there's a bunch of stuff. It smells pretty bad. We know the starter's bad. We've definitely figured that out. We don't know anything else. I also need to check out the starter cable. So there's a chance that this thing's burned up from all this resistance, from all the turning, over and over and over again. Killed the starter. We don't know if it killed the cable. So it's a huge cable, but to verify, we're gonna do a resistance test on it to verify that we don't have a high resistance and need to replace that cable too. And that's not a lot of resistance. 0.3. It's not a lot of resistance. Should be good. It's probably gonna start once we put a starter in it, and it could have just been some weird fluke that happened. I don't know though. I really don't. We won't know until we get the new starter in. That actually
Which will be
tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
So we're starting off on the next day. It got to be way too late to continue last evening. We did get the starter out. Now we're ready to get it back in, but we just want to go through some of this stuff to give you an idea of this job and some of the insights along the way in terms of what you would expect if you want to do this. Most notably is most people who would have an S4 consider upgrading their cats, because when you do dual pulley setup, there's some concerns around melting down cats. So a lot of people do test pipes and stuff like that. Most importantly, you cannot remove this passenger catalytic converter without removing the transmission. So that's a super convenient fun fact. The one thing I'm not sure about is this is a DSG car. On a manual, you are definitely gonna have more clearance. I don't know if you actually require to pull the trans on a manual car. So maybe you could sneak it out, maybe you can't, but you're probably gonna have to do this situation back here no matter what. So we've installed our starter, and pretty simple there. We got that bolt coming in from the trans side and then bolted up here and got our cables installed. If you did have one of these cars and you were upgrading your engine mounts from someone like 034 or BFI, this would be what you'd be replacing. So to do that, you're going to have to, you need to remove these bolts here that actually bolt to the engine mount here. There's also the one bolt that comes through this hole here. I have a light blocking it right there. And then you would have to take off the bracket from the block, this guy, that was a challenge to get out, and then fish them out. Now we have our engine brace on there that we pulled it up. We spun the engine up because you really need it to clear this hole here because there's not a lot of clearance in there. So we had to pull the engine up. If you were doing it at home, you might be able to use a floor jack and jack the engine up and down from the oil pan here. Just maybe throw a wood block under there, make sure you don't damage anything, and then you'd have to jack it up that way. That would be how you'd replace that engine mount on the passenger side. Also, we still have a burnt starter smell in this vicinity. Now this engine mount, I believe you'd have to remove this oil cooler here, right, bolted to the block here, and I don't know if you would be able to clear it past the AC compressor, which is right above here, and then if you just remove this oil cooler, jack the engine up, you might be able to clear the other motor mount off of here, but you know, I'm not positive. This part right here, I'm positive is going to be a son of a bitch to get back into this car. I actually might even remove that heat shield. Oh, but I'm never gonna get it back in. There's no way I'm gonna get that back in. All right, scratch that, I'm not doing that. I'm probably just gonna struggle to get this back in. We did not have to actually remove the cat to do this job, but we did have to loosen it and pull it away. So fortunately, we were able to not have to actually physically remove it. We could just push it back because that one starter bolt won't clear if you don't remove the cat or loosen it back. But how I got it in was I did this. I squatted on top of the engine, and then I had one hand over here on the flange side, and then the other side here underneath the back of the cat like this. And then I had my dear friend Jack was spotting over here because you can't see from this, you're completely working blind. And I had him tell me as I was approaching the correct angle of my dangle. Did wiggling like this, and then got it on. All right, so we are actually all buttoned up and ready to start. One thing I wanted to mention is in the cowl, there's this drain. Now there's a hole at the bottom over here that you can look at and see where the drain goes. And this thing was really filled up with gunk. If you don't clean this out, or if your drain is clogged, this will eventually fill up with water and then can spill into this cabin filter. So that can cause a water leak. This is your intake duct for your HVAC. So while you're here, it's worthwhile to clean that out. Other thing, when we did this, we took all these wires off of this fuse block here. Take a picture beforehand, that way you know where everything goes. That way if you take an extended period of time to do your repair, you know where everything belongs when you're done. That's a good and useful tip.
You're giving people tips on the camera, like they're gonna even try this.
Well, most people probably aren't gonna try this. Most people almost certainly shouldn't try this at home. Let's start it up. and make sure, well, first actually I'm gonna connect the battery and make sure nothing catches on fire. So we're gonna have some spotters to make sure there's no flames when I connect the battery. That's the sound of an engine that hasn't ran in a while because it's been sitting in the parking lot for 2 months. Now I'm gonna burp the cooling system, and then we're gonna put all the fender liners and underbody stuff underneath while we let it run and verify we have no leaks or anything like that. And then we're done. Thank God. Hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more like it, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.